Okay, for the last lecture, I wanted to talk about symbols. And there is a little symbol panel over there. And it is indicated here by the little club sign. And you'll notice that there's a handful of little images in here. And you can bring these out one at a time, like so. And they're just little illustrations is what they are. However, if you wish to use them in the manner that's recommended, you don't have to use them this way, one at a time, but maybe if you're creating logos and things like that that you want to have stored so that you don't have to recreate them every time. You have little libraries of images, and sometimes people will do that. Then what you can do is you use this tool here. It's a little airbrush. And it's not like the airbrush that you would use in Photoshop, because you're not spraying pixels, you're spraying images. So if this one's selected, let me go back here and deselect so we don't have it selected. We'll start with this one, this flower. And I'll select the little airbrush tool. You click and you drag, and you just begin to spray a whole slew of this. Now, they also give you a number of tools to do minor edits to these. So for example, because it's really hard to control the pattern that these are sprayed, we'll start with this one, and this allows you to click and drag and just sort of nudge them a little bit. So if you don't like the randomness of this and you want to adjust it a little bit, you can do that. This one allows you, I believe it pushes them away a little bit. No, actually it pulls them closer. So if you want them all to be pulled a little closer together, if you really hold down the mouse for any length of time, you'll see how they begin to converge and grow together. This one allows you to grow parts of them, so you can change the size a little bit. And if I hold down the Option key, it allows me to shrink some of them. So even though you're starting with images that are all of the same size, you can vary, come back in and you can vary size and a variety of things. This one allows you to rotate a little bit. And you'll see how we can change. Click and drag so that we can actually, change these so that you have a more random-like appearance. This one changes the color a little bit, and that it lightens them up a little. I click on here. So maybe the ones in the background, you want to create the illusion of atmospheric perspective, so they look like they, retreat in the distance. So we can do that. We also have this one here, which allows you to. This one is like the other one. So what am I doing here? Some of these you change. Oh, I know one. Because we can actually change color a little bit to some of these. Yeah, notice how they're getting darker by holding down the Option key. Sort of. Now it restores it. And then the last one here. Oh, maybe introducing a packet style. Okay, well, I'm not sure what the last one is. Symbol styler tool. I'm not sure what that. So, if I wish to add another one, I would have to deselect. Oh, come on. There we go. It won't allow me to add it. So, now when I select from here, come on. Deselect it, select review, and I begin to add it. I don't know if it will add it to this little group or not. We'll find out in just a minute. No, totally separate. Separate group. So if you look in the palette, the symbols palette, when we scroll down, you'll notice that we have open symbol library. This is where I got the 3D symbols for the text. There's artistic textures. There are alt symbols, which is what we have here. We can look at a few of these, look at primitive symbols. And there's some really fun little illustrations here that people have, that Adobe has provided, that you're free to use. And you can use them individually, as I said, or you can paint them in groups or large numbers. Now, at any time, if you wish to change any of these, it's really not very hard at all. And this is why one of the advantages of using this is to be able to edit. You'll notice that, let me do this, select this again down here, and I'm going to make a whole group of these flowers. And you'll see why you may want to do this. Okay, I have all of these orange flowers. I can also create the same kind of flower, maybe different colors. Or what if I wanted to change the color of all of these flowers? How do I do that? The best way to do that would be to select here and drag it over so I have just one of them. And then what I can do is I can select this one, and I'll go to Object, and I need to go to Expand. Okay, expand Object and Fill. And you'll see that it's just a plain old object. I can select the flower, since this is a group. I would need to come back in here and select the group. And let's change it to yellow. So I have my yellow flower. Now I want to change all of these. What I can do is I can drag and I can select this. And I can drag it back over here in my symbol library. And what I'm going to do, as I do that, is I'm going to, if I wanted to add it, I just click and I drag it in here. And it says new symbol, and we'll name it yellow flower. Okay. So boom, I have a new one. What I can also do is I can drag it over here, and I can hold down the Option key, and notice that the one that's orange is highlighted. Notice that there's a little black box around. And when I release the mouse, come on, there we go. Boom. It changes all of the flowers that I created to yellow ones. So for quick updates and revisions to something that you know, if you create a whole forest, why do you want to repaint all of the flowers or repaint all the trees? You just have to repaint one, and you can automatically edit it. Or what you can also do, as I've shown you here, is if you want to use one as a basis for others, you can take one from here, expand it, make changes, whatever changes you want to it. It can be in addition to color, it can be other things. And then just drag it back over into your symbol library. It's added it to the library, and now you can paint with that and do more. Okay. And then all of these tools do is that they just modify these ever so slightly. That when we select them, for example, if I select that one, I click, see how it lightened it? And if I hold down the Option key, it brings it back and darkens it. This one should change color. If I hold down the Option key, it will restore it. How it changes the color, I'm not sure how it determines which way around the color wheel it's moving or what it's doing with it. So you can make slight variations, but some of them are a little unpredictable. Similar to what I was saying here, that when you click with this group, and I want to move these, that I'm just, oh, come on. Don't move this one. That's changed. You should be able to move these just a little bit. I just did it a moment ago, and now it's not doing anything. I'm not sure why that is the case. Back over here. It looks like nothing is working. I don't know why. Select this again. Let's come back. Try on this individually. It's not doing anything. Huh. I don't get it. I don't know why. Looks like it wants to do something, but it's not. So when you have problems, it's best just to start again. Oh, come on. And try it again. See what happens. Okay, now let's try this again. There we go. Now it's working. Now I'm moving on it, just nudging them around. But it's not like you can actually click on it and really meticulously control where it's going to go. Similar to the other ones that you want to bring them closer together. Again, it's difficult to really control what you're doing with this. It's designed to create more random-like patterns. So in your exercise, they've already provided an illustration for you. Let's go to public. Let's go to lessons. And this should be 13. This is the last lesson that you need to do, by the way. So there's the start, and there's the end. So they've given you the bare bones. They've given you little rolling hills and some greenery in the background and the trunk of the tree. Now what they want you to do is basically paint elements into it. And using these tools, make slight variations, maybe create new ones as needed. And you're adding some foliage, you're adding little trees in the background, and you're adding some grass. That's really pretty much all you're doing with flowers. So for certain types of illustrations that are extremely stylized, it can be a pretty handy tool, because if you want to paint quickly and make some basic modifications and changes to it, you can. And when you're done, you have a pretty nice illustration. This is actually better than the last one that they provided for us in the exercise. Okay. And as far as I know, there aren't too many restrictions as to what you can do with these. I would encourage you to look at the libraries of these symbols and check them out, because they have a whole bunch of different kinds of flowers. They have sushi, they have all kinds of little things that you can go in and you can deconstruct, and you can modify colors, you can change any or combine them and to create a brand new one. And that would be pretty cool too. I personally don't use it all that often, the tool, but I could see for certain, as I said, certain types of illustrations, I think it could be extremely beneficial. Because the goal with most illustrations is to be able to not come out quickly and to be able to make changes quickly. That's the unfortunate reality of the commercial art world. Okay. Any questions? Since it's the last short little lecture, is there anything that you want me to add? Anything you want me to review? Everybody feels pretty comfortable with Illustrator now? Yes, no? Everybody really mastered the pen tool? No? It takes time. Okay, the only thing more that I will do this week, if you looked in this week in class, because I didn't do it last week, and I'll break it up into a couple of sections, is to play the Lynda.com videos for using the Pathfinder tool as a way of building a fairly complex illustration accurately, but again, you don't have to use the pen tool in order to do it. Pathfinder is a better tool sometimes to take basic shapes and combine them. And then maybe use the outline tool, and then it outlines everything, delete the shapes you don't want, and then you're left with some very accurate shapes. So you're a little bit quicker. Okay. It's a pretty lengthy series of movies, and it gets fairly complicated, but I do think it's worthwhile watching it just to get a feel for somebody else's technique and how they approach illustration. Okay? Oh, yeah? That's all there is to that tool.
Mr. Mills.
One feature on symbols that I failed to show you yesterday was this last one. And all it does is it's a symbol styler tool, and all it does is allow you to apply graphic styles to symbols. So I can take, for example, one of my symbols out individually. Then I can select the graphic style and use this squiggle technique. And then click on here, and when I click on it, notice it applies that style. That's all there is to it. Undo brings it back. Back into everything. So, for example, if we come back with the flowers, we use nice spray on my flowers. And then I decide that I want to apply the graphic style to one of those. Again, we'll use this one. Select the graphic style. Select this tool here, symbol styler tool, and we can click on some of those and notice how it's applying that style. Is it worthwhile? I'm just showing you how to use it. For the longest time, I honestly felt that Adobe was bolting on elements to something that was really very efficient, and I didn't know how really useful some of these are, and I still question it. It's organized, but again, all of these tools, all they do is add a little bit of functionality. So if you want to select and move them, you use that one. If you want them to be a little bit closer together, you click, and notice how it's like a magnet tracks it to that area. Again, you don't have that much control. This changes size a little bit. So if you want to really increase the size of one versus another, see how these change size. You can vary the size of them. That's all these do. If you want to click and drag and rotate some of them, you can change their place relative to the others. You can do so, give it a more random feel rather than something that's too contrived, I guess. And again, this one allows you to change color a little bit. You notice that it's changing that and make it actually sucking some of the color out of these. And then if you hold down the Option key and then you click back on it, we'll bring the color back. So it's just a way of taking from the library, using these elements, and then on the fly, because it treats all of these as a group, remember, making some slight variations or changes to them. And everybody remembers how I said if you wanted to take this and turn all of them into yellow flowers or pink flowers, whatever, how to do that?
Okay, go over it again.
I'll deselect this. We'll take from our library one item and set it to the side. And now, this is, by just dragging that out, this is a symbol. Well, in order to make the changes to this, what I need to do is go to Object, and I need to expand. Object and fill. Boom. So now this is what the person started with before it became a symbol. So now what I can do I can come back in, and it is a group. So the group selection tool, I'll select right here. Let's bring up a color. How about pink? So if I want, I can turn this into another symbol if I want by clicking and dragging, just dragging it in here. And we'll call it pink flower. Okay, so now I can spray pink flowers everywhere. However, if I wanted all of these to change wherever I've used them, then what I do is I click and I drag and I hold down the Option key. And when I drag on top of the previous, for the orange flowers, you'll notice that it's highlighted in black, outlined in black. And when I release, it edits that symbol. And now notice everywhere I've used them, it propagates across the entire field of flower.
When you named that symbol, it gave you the option to click graphic or yeah. Can you explain it?
Yes, let me go back in here for a minute. If you double click on any of these, you can go back and edit them. That's another way. They give you a variety of ways of doing it. But let's go back. Let me drag this in here again and see. Okay. Oh, graphic or movie clip?
Yeah, it's different.
Graphic. This pertains to Flash. And what they have done is they've taken elements of Flash and brought them into Illustrator. Symbols are nothing more than containers. And when you use elements from your library in Flash, there are different kinds of symbols that you can create. In order to have a library item in Flash, it has to be a symbol. And it can either be a button, it can be a graphic symbol, or it can be a movie clip. It can be one of those three. Well, it's not going to turn this into a button. You'd have to do that in Flash. But it's either going to give you, the option you want to turn it into a graphic symbol or a movie clip. Movie clips by default are more powerful symbols in Flash than graphic symbols. Well, again, it's kind of like what you have here. What it enables you to do is add elements to your library and use them again and again and again without really adding to your file size. Because what you see on stage here, or what you see on your printed artwork, all of these are basically a copy of what you've used in here. You're not ever using the original, you're only using a copy. So by using a copy, it takes less memory. So that might be another advantage to reduce your file size. And in Flash, that can be really important, especially if you're adding animation and you want it to play smoothly and efficiently, and for the end user to have a reasonably good experience and not have to spend an inordinate amount of time downloading your Flash project, so that it will play smoothly and quickly. Using symbols is really important. So all this pertains to, and you can leave this the default setting, is that if you plan on using these elements in Flash. And I think, or my feeling is as good as Flash is when you're creating, they have really good drawing tools and stuff, but Illustrator does a better job. So for myself, if I were designing elements for a project that I was going to create in Flash, I would either do it in Photoshop or Illustrator, and then I would take those over to Flash and put them in the library, and then use all of the animation tools that Flash provides to make them move on stage and do whatever you want them to do. That's where Flash excels. But they did add that eraser tool. That was when Adobe purchased Macromedia. That was not available. That was a tool that was available only in Flash. I've never seen that before. I know it may not seem like much of a big deal, but because all of these elements that you create in Illustrator or Vector, that's something that you can't do. You can't erase pixels. And how they do that, how they program that, I don't know. Because remember, everything you create in Illustrator is an object, and it's either there or it's not. So to be able to come back and to erase individual pixels from a vector and have it turn into new vector shapes, I don't know how they do that. But it's a pretty nifty tool. Remember how I did that? Where I created there's a little pink square, and you can use the eraser tool. You can come back and you can erase part of it. That was unheard of. You couldn't do that. Flash was the only program that would allow you to do that. And now when you move that on top of these, you actually cut them away, and it's turned this into a new shape. It's still a vector graphic, but to actually even have an eraser tool, I mean, you couldn't have one. Because before, anytime you create an object, it's just that, it's an object, and you would have to go back and use these Pathfinder or whatever to modify it. And then if you want to delete elements, you hit the delete key, and that's how you remove colors. You could not use an eraser. It's only Photoshop where you're working with pixels that you can erase. So, if you haven't checked them out yet, I encourage you for your final project. You may want to use them, you may not. But I guarantee you, sometime in the future, you're probably going to want to use some of the symbols that they provide for you here. There's some really, really nice artistic textures you might want. Others, again, for the web, maps, if you're going to design maps, nature, we've got a whole slew of fun symbols here. And here are the trees, we've got bugs, all sorts of stuff, plants.
Can you use text as a symbol?
Sure, why not? I think, you know what I said, sure, why not? And then let's try it. You want editable text. If we create outlines, I know for a fact it can be a symbol. Now, as far as using editable text, I don't know, so let's try. I may have been too quick to let's take it and drag it in here. There we go. So it's in here. Now let's use the airbrush tool. There you go. Now you can spray as many bits of that text as you want. If that's what you want to do. But it would be useful, as I said, if you're designing logos, and you don't want to have to go back and tweak the, if you have to remember what font you use and what size and all that sort of thing, just turn it into a symbol and then just drag it out and you can use it. If you need to edit it, you can always edit it. Revise it, make copies, make separate versions of it. And if you're doing a lot of work in advertising, corporate work, you're going to be doing that sort of thing a lot. Where color is important. We're incorporating part of a corporate identity is part of what you do a lot. And there are very specific colors, very, very specific fonts, very specific things that you'll have to adhere to. And so rather than you have to wonder, remember, I have to call up Pantone colors or refer to a little cheat sheet that you created for yourself or something, just throw it in the library and you've got it set to go. We also did that when we worked with colors too, create your own color libraries. And that would be really useful in the corporate world too, advertising and that sort of thing. Okay. So there is, useful applications for these, really useful. Just in the kind of work that I do, I haven't had much need for it. but I can see where they would be extremely useful. And when we looked yesterday at the little sample illustration that you're supposed to go in and use symbols and modify and stuff, and they give you the basic shapes and all that. If you do that style of illustration, I could see where that could be for children's books. I mean, just, that's kind of, it could be for advertising or whatever. If that's the style of illustration that you're working, it could be really useful. You know, so you wouldn't have to continually, you know, design leaves and design these little creatures and stuff that you include in your illustrations. All sorts of things. They're pretty detailed. Because the vector, notice how it folds up so nicely when you enlarge it or reduce it. It's pretty cool. Okay. Anything else you want me to review? No? Everything's clear? Perfect. Okay, just a couple more days left.